Mwasibire muta, mwasibye mutya, amahoro, agandi, byaibo, habari gani, muraho, sangonini, kopango, odeo. For those of you who are wondering what that was, these are some of the various local greetings found in East Africa's diverse languages. Welcome to SheCentre, the female podcast, where I dive into the issues and experiences that affect women everywhere. I am your host, Resti Kansime, and I am passionate about creating a safe space for women to share their stories and triumphs. I want to thank you for tuning into my podcast, and I would love for you to join our community and stay connected with us beyond this episode. You can find us on Instagram at _SheCentre_podcast and follow us on Facebook at the SheCentre Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast and hit that follow and like button on our social media to be part of the conversation. Happy 2024. Happy New Year. Welcome back to SheCentre, the female podcast. I hope that you had a lovely holiday and that your new year is wonderful and full of so much hope. Mine is really good. It started off really good. And I wish you all the best this year as we continue on this journey of self-discovery and listening to stories from different women. As we step into the new year, our first episode of 2024 is a powerful exploration of resilience, self-discovery, and mental health. Joining us today is the remarkable Dr. Cissy Atwine, a dedicated psychiatrist, loving mother, and a passionate advocate. In this thought-provoking conversation, Dr. Cissy generously shares her personal journey from overcoming childhood trauma to embracing her role in psychiatry. We delve into the delicate balance of work and family life, gaining valuable insights into navigating mental health challenges. You don't want to miss this. This episode is a testament to the strength within us all, inspiring you to embrace each step of your unique journey. So, join me in welcoming the incredible Dr. Cissy Atwine. Enjoy. Hi, Cissy. How are you doing?
Hi, Resti. I'm all right. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited. I can't wait for the conversation.
I'm more excited to have you. I've been talking so much about mental health in some of my episodes from books I've read. So it's quite interesting to have someone who actually is like a professional in a field. Maybe I might ask you some questions to fix me. Joke, just kidding. But yeah, it's an honor to have you. I have heard about you from, I think, social media because of the content that you've been posting. And then you hosted one of my cousins on your podcast, which was like, okay, now I'm really interested because she sent me the link and I'm like, oh, she's a friend to my cousin. So let me find out more about her. And that's why I reached out to her and I was like, you know what, please help me, put me in contact with Cissy. I would like to hear her story because in many cases, people who host stuff never really get to tell their whole story. I know you've told so much of your story, but you tell it on your end,
Right.
you know, like
Yeah.
you tell it when you're the one who is recording.
Yeah.
And I know
No one asking me difficult questions.
exactly. So I'm hoping to ask you the other questions that you've not figured out.
Yeah.
But please just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do briefly.
Yeah.
I would definitely have to do the introduction also in my intro. But since you're someone who is professional and there's a lot of work that you're doing that is helping people, I think it's very important that from your own words that you also say something about yourself and what you do.
Yeah. My name is Cissy Atwine. I am a Ugandan psychiatrist in the UK. I am a mom of 3. I am a wife to 1. I am a content creator. I do content around mental health education. I make mental health education videos on Instagram and also on YouTube. And I also share videos about how to move from Uganda to the UK as a medical doctor, and also life in the diaspora as a Ugandan. So I feel like I'm not very niche because I do everything, to be honest. Like I post whatever I feel like posting, which is usually something to do with my life, which is either to do with my work, mental health, or my life as a mom.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much for introducing yourself and for all the work that you're doing. And indeed, I think these days it's best your content comes from who you are as a person.
Yeah.
Because as a psychiatrist, if people are interested in your services, I think what might draw them to you might be who you are. Like, for instance, if I believe, because in many cases I find that these days it's quite easy to just see someone be professional online. You don't know anything about their personal life. And then you reach out to them and find out they are a completely different person. But if you regularly see their content and you're like, this person has grown on me, it's quite easy for you. By the time you meet them, there's that, like, that awkwardness has already gone. Yeah, you feel like you already know them. Yeah. Like, I've only watched a few of your videos, but I already feel like I know you. You know how social media always has that intimate thing that it connects with us. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's quite also good that for people to share their journeys in terms of how they got to where they are, because there's so many people who would like to go to the UK. You've done a lot of videos for people who are in Germany and Switzerland and wherever. People can't find this information. Some of them don't want to share with others.
Yeah.
So if it can help another person,
people have to move in silence.
Exactly, like, really, why can't you just pull us also with you? Take us along. We also want to go to Switzerland. Like, I have a friend here, and like she's Nigerian. She was at my university, and I would always, like, she came like the first year, and the next time she was helping, I was telling her, people are always calling me asking how to come to Germany and study and all that stuff.
Yeah,
and she was like, "You do it for free?" I'm like, "Yeah." Because I want to help them. And she was like, the first person who asked me, I charged him money. He didn't even get admitted into the school, but he had to pay me anyways. So it's quite interesting that sometimes people actually are willing to offer. Of course, there's always that part where people might, like, you're helping so many people and you need to get something in return.
Yeah.
But it's quite interesting that you give people that basic information to help them, because, you know, someone out there might be in the same place where you are. If you know you went through it, it's much easier if you help another person. So thank you so much for offering all that information. Yeah.
No, you see what happened. You know how it is when you're in Uganda and you're seeing people, and people can be so cryptic. Eh? They just post their pictures in the snow. You're like, Vanang, where is this person?
I know.
They
How can I come?
You just see the streets. You could just see the streets. I know this is not Kampala, eh? But you don't know where they are. And you also want to go there. You're like, hey, mama.
Yeah.
So that's why
I just show them it's not that hard, actually. Like, it's a reachable goal.
And you don't need to know someone who knows someone who knows someone, for most of these things.
Yeah.
So that's the reason I did my videos, because I struggled myself to find the information when I was looking to move.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, but I do charge as well also. If someone wanted one-on-one, like...
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, of course, for that one I understand. But at least, like, by the time I reach out to you, that means, like, whatever you offered me for free, whatever you offered me for free is not enough, and now I need you to personally handle my case.
Exactly. Because if you don't need to talk to me, because I feel like I offer all the information that's straightforward, the links to the website. You can go and do it yourself. The problem
is
not
even for one country, for more than one country. like when I watched Amanda's video, I was like, I feel like she has explained everything. All the questions that other people could have asked, you asked them from her. So that's very good. And I believe that, man, we're in a global world right now.
Yeah.
We really need to pull our people.
Yes, because the more of us are out here, the better for us. Yeah. Because then we can help our own countries as well.
To advance. Yeah. So once again, thank you. So, anyways, that's not why we're here. I just want to get to know you as Cissy. You can start out by telling us a little bit about yourself, how your childhood was briefly. Of course, you don't really have to say much. I would definitely put your I would tag you like when I'm
Yeah.
posting this, so
Yeah.
that people can find whatever it is that they want after.
Yeah.
We don't have to tell the whole story since you've already told
Yeah.
it already on your social
Yeah.
media. But I
Yeah.
just want to get to know, I would like to say, psychiatrist you, but
Okay.
on a personal level. So,
Okay.
what happened to Cissy?
What
Tell us
happened?
about your childhood
Yeah.
and how it might have shaped the person that you are right now, and how you
Yeah.
see the world, and how you got into psychiatry of all things.
Hmm. So I
Yeah.
think that's a very big question, to be honest. It's a very big and complicated question, but I'll do my
Yeah.
best to answer. So before I was a psychiatrist, so anyway, I was just a girl.
Yes.
I was the second of four children. I grew up in Kampala, city girl. Do you know where Old Kampala is? That's where I grew up.
Oh wow,
Um,
the center.
yeah, yeah, in the center next to Palette Supermarket. So we used to we used to live just next to Palette Supermarket. I went to school initially, Kitante Primary School, and then City Parent School. That's where I met Amanda. She came in, I think, in like P4, something like that. Anyway, so my childhood, I think, was mostly a good childhood. I think the story that I've told on social media is mostly in relation to my PTSD that I experienced following sexual abuse that I experienced in childhood. So that's somewhere on my social media, somewhere if you want more details for that. But besides that, I think I had a mostly happy childhood. Besides all that, I think I was mostly loved. I had like I remember I felt like my parents believed in me a lot, and they always held me to high standards. And so, but also they expected a lot from me, which is something that led me to always also have high standards of myself. And so I easily put myself on pressure like that. Like I want to be the best
Yeah.
in everything that I do. And I did psychiatry because so the first thing is I wasn't so much interested in psychiatry, but when we did our psychiatry exams in fourth year medical school, we did that course unit on psychiatry. I was the best, and so the one of the professors called me and he was telling me how I was the best. Yeah, I was recruited basically. He said, "Have I ever considered psychiatry?" I said, "Not really." Then he said, "You should consider it. It gave me all the pros. It's really good for work-life balance. What, especially if you're going to be a mom." And then I was like, okay, maybe that's when I thought about psychiatry. So at the same time, he asked me what do I like doing exactly, because it was me and another friend. He called both of us who had both been the best performers, and I said I like talking to people. Then he said maybe you can do psychotherapy, which incidentally that's what I want to do now is psychotherapy. And I did like talking to people. I did like to know about why did someone become the way they are. I love that stuff. And then I love to hear people's stories, and also at the same time I have a family history of schizophrenia. I have a family member who has schizophrenia, which is one of the most severe mental illnesses, and it's the most like it's the one most people consider or think about when they think of someone suffering with mental illness.
Yeah.
It's where you can hear voices that are not there, you can see things that are not there. So I had a cousin who started getting symptoms when she was 16, just 16. She started hearing voices. Like she would be in class and she hears people are talking about her, negative things. And I found that so scary because I was like, first of all, by the time she was in S4, for me, I was in med school already. And I had done psychiatry already at that point. And I just felt like, and I knew that your risk increases if you have family members, depending on the family member. The closer the relation, the higher risk of schizophrenia. So I was like, if that happened to me, I would also want someone to look after me. And also, what scared me about it is that it can happen to anyone. No one chooses. You just wake up and, and you're hearing voices. For example, or even like anxiety, depression, all these mental health things, they just happen. So that's why I did psychiatry.
And when you were doing it in Uganda, did you find any challenge with, for instance, okay, I'll just be honest. It was until last year when I actually learned the difference between psychiatrists and psychologists.
Yeah.
Many people don't know, and
Yeah.
many people don't even know who to see.
Yeah.
for specific issues. So I was
Yeah.
working for this company that's here in Germany, and it's more like we were trying to help expats when they move into the country. And so many people would call and they would be like, I need a psychologist, I need a psychiatrist. And that's when I had to learn the difference between the two.
Yeah.
And I had to speak to so many like psychologists and psychiatrists who we were trying to send these people to. And one lady explained this to me,
Yeah.
who was a psychiatrist from South Africa, but she
Yeah.
moved here.
Yeah.
She told me that like she left South Africa when she was like already established, like a whole PhD professor and
Yeah.
everything, and then she got here, and they were like, we don't like.
They didn't recognize her paper.
Of course. So she said now she had to go back. She was like, she had been. It was like 3 years. She had to now make sure that she can also practice here, which was so hard. And she was telling, and so she's the one who explained the difference. Is this the same thing for you, or is it because that you went to study in the UK, or do you have to also transition into, or is the UK and Uganda like, do they have the same?
They are not completely. You have to transition. Like there are exams you have to do, depending on the level you come at. Unless if you're a consultant already in Uganda, let's say, you could potentially get a license to practice here on those grounds, but you have to show a lot of evidence and a lot of proof that you're really as qualified as you are. I know that process is quite long, but it's possible. But most people, you have to do exams again.
Oh wow! So when you went,
but you don't redo med school. You don't redo med school. You just, for example, do an exam.
Yeah. There's I guess that's what she had to do, but I think for her, what made it more complicated was the language. Because she was telling me it's much more complicated to meet someone and talk to them in German, or if they don't understand English and all that stuff. Yeah,
because psychiatry is all about talking. You see, if someone doesn't know English but they're a surgeon, let's say you're an orthopedic surgeon, bones are bones everywhere, so if the bone is broken, you know what to do. They show you the equipment. But then if you have to, like in psychiatry, it is the conversation that will tell you what is the problem with this person. So you have to understand the language, the context, everything.
Yeah. And there's a lady, I don't know if you know her, she's a psychologist. She's called Anita Phillips. She recently wrote a book that Oprah has, Oprah interviewed her. I listened to her podcast. It's called In the Light Podcast. And she also shared that the one thing that pushed her into like mental health and being a psychologist is the fact that when she was growing up, her sister was actually going through what you were explaining. Like she used to see things, and that was like, she's like 50 now, so it was like long time ago. And then they are pastors, like they are pastors' children, so the whole church wasn't allowed to talk about it. And how she said when she got into school, she really, like her sister ended up killing herself. Like she committed suicide because of drugs and stuff like that. And she said when she got into school, she really wanted to understand all that. And you mentioned earlier that not only your own experience, but also the experiences of other people around you were some of the things that could have contributed. Okay, apart from the fact that you were really good in the course, even if you didn't want to. But is this something that you have found that in Uganda, are people willing to understand, or is it quite still a challenge? Because I know it, Abalalu, Uganda, Abalalu, like we didn't know that. Up to now, I know recently a friend of mine in our school group chat was sharing about how she lost her child and went through a whole mental state where she was on the street. And another friend who had lost a child, who probably also went through something with mental health, but wasn't sharing like how this one was being vulnerable. She tells her, but for me, mine was not like yours. Like I don't need, like she was trying to say, like I don't need help because I didn't have to go on the street to throw stones and stuff like that. Is it something that you noticed in Uganda when you were studying before you moved to the UK? Like, is this how are people viewing mental health now with regards to some of the things back in the day that we used to just say Bamuloze? How did you navigate stuff like this when you were working before?
So it was exactly like that when I was last in Uganda, but that was when was I last in Uganda? 6 years ago. It was exactly the same thing. So I tried to get some extra experience after I'd finished med school, and I volunteered. I wanted to go to Butabika, but they didn't allow me because it was a long bureaucracy, and they were saying no, sorry, no volunteers. So then I went to Mulago Mental Health Clinic. It's called Bosa Mental Health Clinic, and so I was volunteering there. But we were seeing cases of the extreme, like people who were being brought in by their people. For example, it was also outpatient, so they're not as bad to be admitted, but like severe mental illness is what you would see. So it still has that. It was still that same kind of thing of it's so extreme and it's for only certain people, and the stigma was quite a lot. I don't know if it's any better now, but from what I heard from statistics, I hear that it's even worse. Like mental health problems are much getting even higher due to more poverty. Like after COVID, people losing their jobs. Like poverty is very much related to mental health. The poorer you are, the more likely you are to have anxiety, depression. Understandably, because you don't have food, for example, that's going to make anyone anxious. But if it's constantly, it will affect your mood, so you can get depressed. But I heard also we have a lot of substance misuse and addiction problems coming up now in Uganda. And I've also heard it's a lot in doctors, so it must be a lot everywhere. I think because doctors have more access to some of these like drugs. But I don't know about what's on the ground exactly. But I don't think the situation. I don't know how it's looking, but it doesn't sound good so far from what I've heard. And the same things are there, the same misconceptions, maybe Bamloze, always those things are still there.
Which really prohibits people from getting the help that they need.
Yeah.
Is it I know here it's quite very hard. Like when I was speaking to the people who were helping, I understood that for anxiety, whatever, like anything that requires medication, you had to go to a psychiatrist. But I do hear people in Uganda who are meeting psychologists and they are being given prescription. Is this the regulation in Uganda, or is this something that is normal
No.
how is it in the UK? Because I feel like a psychiatrist is the one supposed to prescribe medicine to you.
Yeah, that is it really, because a psychiatrist is a medical doctor who has specialized in like disorders of the mind, so meaning we can prescribe medication. But psychologists here in the UK, psychologists are doctors, but they're PhD doctors. So like, because you see, because I'm a psychiatrist, I deal in mental health mostly, but at the same time I have that background, which is very important, that I know about the human body, side effects and what. So but the thing is, with Uganda we have a lot of, I think what happens is that maybe the demand is so huge that maybe the person, because I think the last I heard was that there were like 55 psychiatrists for the entire population, which is
apparently there are very few. I heard.
So maybe the situation is so bad that anyone can maybe, because I know we also have something called psychiatric clinical officers who are people who do a diploma, and I know they can prescribe. So those are the people that were in the Mulago Mental Health Clinic when I was there. There were no psychiatrists. The psychiatrists were rare. They would come like once a week. Most of the time, I don't know where they would be. Maybe they would be in Butabika. I don't know. So even those people who had done a diploma could prescribe. So it could be, but I don't know. But it could be that maybe our regulation is maybe not as strict due to the resources not being enough. So there was some task sharing where some people even do things that ideally they wouldn't have had to do.
Yeah, because I know there's like someone told me they had prescription from their psychologist. I'm like, what? How is that possible? Anyways, maybe before we can get into like your life, motherhood and all the work that you do, you can simply just from your observation with everything that's happening, mostly for women. Because for me, my interest is I'm interested in female, like women and what they're going through. What is your observation? I don't know if you guys have like constantly doing research. I know you're in the UK right now for a long time, so it may not be best in Uganda. But with everything that happened, most people that I'm talking to right now, I personally, as included, 2020, was one of those things that made us understand what mental health is.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
also, I do feel like some of us might be not aware. Okay, of course, because therapy is expensive and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So you basically diagnose yourself. I have anxiety. I have this from just listening to podcasts. I like the fact that these days you hear someone saying trauma. I went through this. I like how people are openly
Becoming
speaking
more
about
open.
it. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
becoming more aware about
Yeah.
themselves and what they went through. But do you think there's a challenge now?
I think
What's your observation about
Yeah,
this?
I think, yes, I agree with you that it seems like mental health is kind of trending everywhere, everywhere, everywhere. It's trending. And so I
Yeah.
think it's good that there's more awareness and people are starting to know a lot of these things. And so they know that, yeah, this is trauma, anxiety, depression. So I think there's a pro to that, but also there's a con in that there is, I think, over diagnosing of yourself, which kind of minimizes the people who are actually going through the real things. Like that OCD thing of saying, I have OCD, I have OCD, I'm so OCD this. OCD is a serious mental illness and it's so severe, it's so bad when someone is experiencing it. Just last week I saw a patient who had OCD and she is so distressed by her intrusive thoughts. Like when you have OCD, it means you have obsessions, which are like obsessive thoughts and they're intrusive, they keep coming to your mind, the same thing keeps coming to your mind. Maybe, for example, this person is going to get infection, and then there are compulsions where you feel like you must do this to fix this obsession. So maybe washing for her thing is washing her hands, cleaning surfaces to the point of bleeding, like where you wash and your hands bleed. And the thing is, the person knows it. They know that it is not a rational thing. They can tell, but at the same time, they can't stop themselves. So now that's real OCD. So if you go there and you say, oh, just because you like things to be organized, and you say, oh, my OCD, oh, I'm so OCD.
You're right.
It's the same way you can't just say, oh, like, it's serious. It's a serious thing. So I think that's the problem, is that it becomes even harder for people who might be having, let's say, real OCD or even real depression to come out and speak, or even real anxiety disorders, because it sounds like, oh, if everyone has this, then how come me I'm the one who's struggling? But actually, those other people don't have it. They're just talking like they do, but they don't.
Yeah.
I think that's a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also quite hard right now because like you said, like we're talking about the whole it's like a trend right now, mental health. And this whole awareness and the information is there, but what do you advise people to do? Because, like, for instance, if you can't afford therapy,
Yeah.
and the only information you can get is through podcasts and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and unfortunately I don't think many of these people in Uganda are offering this information. So you find yourself, the people you're listening to are in America and all that stuff.
Yes.
Like me, most of
Yes.
the mental health podcasts I listen to are in
Yeah.
America. I've had people talk about mental health in their podcasts in
Yeah.
Uganda, but there's not really many specialists. I think you are the first person who I found, although your content is not specifically just about
No.
it.
Yeah.
So it's I feel like there is need for people to actually come out and be like, if this is what you're dealing with, this is what your situation is, and this is how you can find the help. If you cannot afford therapy, these are some of the mechanisms that you can use, like
Yeah.
to navigate life as this and this. But yeah, hopefully now that the whole thing is trending, we would have more psychologists who are
Yeah.
sharing information.
Hopefully people train more and they're able to do more. And also, like you've said, I think at the same time it's better than nothing. It's better to listen to podcasts where you're getting ideas and you can relate, than to say, oh, now I listen to nothing. The problem is that I don't think a lot of people actually listen to the podcasts. I feel like we have a lot of this, short form content. Like,
Clips, yeah, they want
yes,
reels, like
yes,
20-second things where like five ways to find out you have
ADHD.
yeah. I know what's her name? There's a lady right now, gosh, I forgot her name. She's a psychologist.
Yes,
She's really
Let's
huge.
fix it. Counseling.
Let's fix it. Yeah, let's fix it. I spoke to her sometime, and I was like, it's really good that you're doing this. Like, I'm glad that someone is actually coming out and doing it. But I also feel like there are many people who are just watching it for like, you know how she usually posts those clips of how people are like, you know, when like, let's answer this question, someone writes about their
Yes.
husband. I feel like
Yes.
some people just go there for that lugambo, but the stories are really interesting. But she was the first person who I actually found was doing something about it and talking
Yes.
about, and I wish
Yes.
many more like this can come up and talk about
Yes.
and partner up together and talk about these things.
Yes.
Anyways, let's see how that goes. But now
I'll try my best.
you guys are all going abroad. You're not fixing our
Nah.
problems in Uganda.
I want to come back home eventually, but I'm still
Mukome one
staying.
start the content about what
Somehow.
should we do.
No, so actually, I'm in a process of I'm looking at redirection on my channel. So I think I'm going to start doing more mental health content, mental health videos. Yeah. The thing is that they're boring. That's the truth. They're boring
No,
unless,
actually, I
yeah.
feel like there is a way you can communicate it in such a funny way, but someone gets the point at the end of the day. You get? I think you can do that. Like, I've watched your content. It's a way you always like talk about your husband, and you guys just laugh about something, and yet it was like a very serious point. And someone can easily just be like, "Yeah, trauma," and you're like, "Wait,
Yeah.
first go back there. What were you saying?" Like, how are you just moving around? So I think
know.
I think it would really be good for someone
Yeah.
who is already having the platform, who already has
Yeah.
like the profession, to come out and say, maybe through that you can
Yeah.
pull out all these others,
Yeah.
and then redirect like people where to go. Anyway, so you can tell us a little bit about your life. How are you juggling parenthood and you know work? Because I feel
And
like
work.
psychiatrists are so busy.
Yeah, and also because I'm a trainee, it's even worse because this December I'm back on the on-call rota. So I had just had a baby recently. So my baby is 14 months. Actually, today is 14 months old. This is birthday. And so I'm just going back on the on-call rota. So all along I've not been on the rota because maternity leave is 1 year. So I should have just been coming back from maternity leave now. So that means I'm going to start working night shifts starting on Christmas Day actually. Although by the time this video comes out, it's going to be the new year. I can't wait to watch it and see that, oh, I survived. Also, Happy New Year to people listening
Happy
to
New
this.
Year. Yes.
So yeah, so it's a bit of a challenge because I'll have to work night shifts sometimes. Then I have to work long days. That's from like 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. some days. Then I have to work weekends sometimes. Then basically the work is a lot because I work full time. So on average, I have a 48-hour week on average. And what helps me a lot is I have a very supportive partner because I wouldn't be able to do this without him. So he actually stays at home and looks after the kids. And we have 3 kids. Our oldest is just 5. And then we have a 3-year-old and then the 1-year-old. So it's also a busy period in kids' life. Like they're the kind where they're still where they need us most of the time, even to just wipe their bums in the toilet. Like no one is independent yet. You still have to go wipe people's bums, feed this one, dress this one, showering. Like looking after kids alone is a full-time job. So I'm glad that I have a full-time dad who does a lot of the work when I'm not there. Even when I'm there, really. Yeah, that's what helps me.
I was speaking recently to a guest, and she was like, I need to travel. I want my children to see that you can do both. But then she was literally on a call and she was crying because her baby was crying, saying, "Mommy, where are you?"
No.
And she was like, okay. She was like, now every time I get phone calls like that, my heart breaks, and then I start to wonder, do I really need to do this stuff? Like, should I sacrifice all the, like, she had that whole imposter syndrome where she was like, I want to do this, but also, is it really worth it for my kids? Do you find yourself in that space sometimes?
Yeah, I once was wondering, should I just work less than full-time? That's part-time. Or should I continue working full-time? Like, is it really worth it? And in those moments, usually I talk to my husband who gives me a serious talk. Nenzira mama gezi.
It's like, wake up.
Hey. So he usually reminds me, like, what is the point of this? What are we doing? Because the thing is, for me, is that I'm in a process. This is not my career. Okay, it's my career, but it's not the end. I'm in training.
Yeah.
So, like, at some point I was thinking maybe I should just stop here, because it's possible to just stop here and I would be a psychiatrist, but it's called a middle grade. So you're in the middle of the grades, but you're not a consultant.
Okay.
Which people do that usually for childcare purposes. They're like, you know what, enough. If you're a middle grade, then you don't have nights, you don't have long days. What you just work 9 to 5. And in terms of career progression, like you've stopped in the middle. Or should I continue? And he obviously told me I need to continue. I mean, it's just 3 years, and besides, we are even lucky that we have him. And so, unlike other moms who maybe their partners are also working, so it's even worse. So
Yeah.
me, I have that relief. So he encourages me a lot and just tells me to keep pushing, and I'm keeping pushing. Yeah, but also because like my job is so far, because I'm a trainee, every 6 months I change. Every 6 months I change. Most of the jobs have been really, really good, and they're friendly for kids, especially here in the UK. I probably also Germany. It's not like Uganda where no one cares. You go to work, you have kids at home, your kids are sick, no one cares. Even in us, we have kids. But here, when you have
We
kids,
are
there's
paying
already
you to work. Don't tell us your problems.
exactly. But here, there's how they treat you differently. So, for instance, I'm working currently with a perinatal mental health team, so that's with mums, and they allow me to work from home in the afternoon. So I only go in the office in the mornings. So all my patients are going to be booked for me only in the mornings. Then I get to do my admin from home. So that means that even if I'm working, like I can afford to maybe go pick up my daughter. Although I don't, but if I wanted, I could go with my husband. Once in a while, I'll go pick up, then I come and I continue the work day, because also she goes to school very close by. So I think for me, it's working.
That's good. I think if you have a supportive partner and you have that
Yes.
understanding,
Yes.
it becomes quite easy, and all
Yes.
the pain is worth it at the end of the day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Because
But do you
then
miss that community thing of Uganda?
these days, when I ask people like in Uganda, like what's their experience, they say they're also struggling with childcare. They also have to, is it because either you have a maid, but then you're not sure of the maid, you're suspicious of the maid.
Yeah.
They're worried what the maid is doing, or you go to these childcare centers, but then also they're also quite expensive. And then
Yeah.
also,
Oh my God, it's very
yeah, depending on
expensive.
your parents, like now, like me, my parents are working age. They're not like they're retired. They have nothing to do. They also have their lives. They also have their
Yeah,
things.
actually, yes, yes. Unless you have these really like parents
Rich.
who are like old and retired, but these days I
Yes.
feel like also some your parents can be like, man, we also have
They
work.
also have work. Yeah. So
Oh yeah,
unless you
actually,
see, so it can be
yeah.
like, I think for maybe once in a while they'll help you. But I don't know if you can have your parents permanently in your childcare system that every Monday, Tuesday. But some people do have that experience, which is nice.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
at least because me, I know my own parents are
It
not.
wouldn't have been different that much.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
don't think so. I
maybe on
think
the
probably
weekend.
exactly to
Yeah,
visit, what, but they're also busy in their own lives, like they're working.
on the weekend they also want peace.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I would like for you to talk a little bit about your, is it Uganda Mom Emotion Regulation Group? Please share
Okay.
about it a little
So,
bit.
I don't actually, I'm not currently running one, but I was doing an emotional regulation group for moms. So that's like, I would have a few moms, a maximum of 5 moms at a time, who we have once a week, like group therapy sessions over a period of 10 weeks. And this is to help you learn to regulate your own emotions. And the aim of this was to help moms to learn to regulate their emotions in order to help like change generational patterns. Because that's how it happens, is that if you learn how to regulate your emotions as a mom, then you're going to treat your kids differently, and then your kids also learn how to regulate their emotions, not all this shouting every time, shouting at their kids, beating kids, like not what some of us experienced anyway, which is what I experienced. I experienced regular mom, Ugandan mom stuff. Like
Just a
so
little bit.
yeah. So I feel like yeah, that's the first step is us as the moms. You have to like your parents did the best that they could with what they knew.
Yeah.
But now you're in an era where you probably know better. If you don't know better,
Yeah.
obviously continue doing what you know. But if you know better,
You
then
have to be
you have to try
intentional.
and
Yeah.
you have to try and do
Yeah.
better, because it's not going to happen automatically. You don't just say, "Oh, I want to be a calmer person," and you become. No, it's a lot of
Yeah.
work. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
So that's why you appreciate what your parents did, but then now you take over and start also reparenting your own self which is the
Yeah.
hardest part of being a mom, in my opinion, is that having to reparent your own self alongside your kids. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you speak a little bit about this? This is one topic that I really like because I'm also in that. Like, I heard about this thing, I think, last year. And I was like, man, there's a lot of things that we need to reparent. I was like, by the time you become a mom, you're really trying. I think when you become a mom is when you actually appreciate. Sometimes you appreciate your parents. Because if you're also going through all these things and you're really trying, but you're like, I also have these things that are holding me back. I don't know how to be like, I'm just figuring it out as we go. And your child is
Yes.
looking at you like this, you should be a goddess or
Yes.
god and all that
Yeah.
stuff. How have you navigated this as a, you also said you had your own trauma growing up,
Yeah.
and how have you been able to navigate this as a parent?
So I think it's one of the reasons why I'm so glad that I work in psychiatry and in mental health. Because I feel like it was just perfect timing for me. So what happened for me is that I did not start to do any of this like inner work they talk about before I had kids. No, I did not. So for me, I just jumped into the parenting world. I wasn't like you, probably listening to podcasts, trying to do the work. No, 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 no. I just fell in love. Coco was this. I just fell in things. I just
They
had the
just threw
kids.
you there.
I didn't overplan. I just had the kids. And now when the kids were here, I realized that I did not like the type of parent I was becoming. I was starting to hear my mom in my things, like in my myself, like I would say things that she used to say, which I didn't entirely love. And I love my mom, but there are some things that she would do that I would feel like, get mommy, yeah. And also, my mom did apologize to me, which I think is rare, and I think is so cool that my mom apologized to me and all of us kids about how she raised us. Like she feels like some things were unnecessarily harsh, and then she also told me about her own history and her own story, and her own life was so hard. So,
Yeah.
in comparison to us, it wasn't that bad, but at the same time, me, I'm comparing with this is my baseline. I'm not comparing with her own
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
So, also I'm in family therapy. My family is in therapy, which I think is the coolest thing.
Yeah. I think that's very important. Yeah.
It's so cool. So anyway, I realized that I was starting to do things that maybe were done to me which I didn't like, and I wanted to be different. And then I started getting kind of low in mood. I think I was starting to get depressed, but I wasn't depressed. I was super anxious, but anyway, I had PTSD, so I had super high anxiety. I was like over jumpy. I would get scared by anything small. I had difficulty sleeping. I was starting to not enjoy life. I'm just there. The days became so long. I wasn't happy anyway. And I realized I needed help. And so I reached out for help. And I spoke to a doctor who then referred me for talking therapy, for CBT therapy. And so the way CBT therapy is that you have once a week sessions with your therapist, and they give you exercises of things that you have to do. I have an online course, by the way, on emotional regulation that's absolutely free. However, by the time this video comes out, I think it might not be available anymore because it's up to the
Oh,
25th of December.
that's
Yes.
sad.
So in that video, maybe for you, in that video, so the reason is that I want to redo it. So it will be available in future again.
Okay, yes, yes, that would be
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
So by the time you listen to this video, rather audio, maybe you can check out my socials and see if it's out
Yeah.
again. So anyway, in that emotional regulation online course, I explain exactly what I learned in therapy, like what they teach you, and what you're
Yeah.
supposed to do, and what the homework is, and give you that like a worksheet of do this, follow this, and that's what you do. So when you keep doing that, after some point, you realize that you're now a different person. You're doing things
Yeah.
differently.
Yeah.
So, for instance, one of the problems I had was being maybe overreactive in situations and not taking time to maybe be calm and not thinking and just reacting. And so, what happens is that you first analyze those situations in hindsight. So, at the end of the day, I sit down, I'm like, today what didn't go well. Then I write it down. Then I analyze what were the thoughts going through my mind at the time, what was I feeling in my body, what were the emotions, and what was the behavior, what did I do.
Yeah.
And so when you do that enough times, in hindsight, at some point it starts to happen in the moment. And then that's how you stop yourself. You're like, oh,
Oh,
I didn't hit the kid. I
yeah.
paused and I said, I need a minute.
Yeah.
So that's exactly how you reparent yourself. that's one of the ways, is that
Yeah.
teaching your brain new patterns. And it's very difficult because your brain loves patterns. So it will keep repeating things
Yeah.
in the same way. It's hard to do new things. So
Yeah. Yeah. I heard.
in the journey of healing and self-work, remember to be kind to yourself, because you're teaching
Yeah.
yourself something new. So you're going to backslide once in a while.
Yeah. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. I think that's very helpful. And maybe you can just say what CBD is.
So cognitive behavioral therapy, which cognitive
Yeah.
means our
Yeah.
thoughts and emotions, and then behavior. So
Behavior.
because our
Yeah. How
thoughts
to
and
manage them.
emotions and behavior are all related, so
Mm.
you will behave according to how you're feeling,
Yeah.
and you feel according to how you're thinking. So that's why it's about thoughts are really important. And so when you start to learn to analyze your thoughts and your emotions, you can start to control them. Because
Yeah.
otherwise, before CBT therapy, I would have thought that I can't control how I feel. You have no control of you yourself, your own thoughts. Sorry, your own
Yeah.
emotions.
Mm.
Yeah, your own emotions, and you easily think someone has made you angry, someone has made you sad, when actually
Yeah.
you have allowed it. So learning that was life changing for me.
Yeah. And
Mm.
I like, from what I'm hearing from you, I like the fact that you are a professional who is seeking also this help. So this
Yeah.
shows that having all the information, reading books and all that stuff, it's not enough, because even the professionals have to go somewhere and seek the information and seek the help that they need, and also put it into practice. So
Yes.
that's very good. You mentioned something in the beginning about your experience, your sexual experience that you went through, your abuse?
Sexual abuse. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you deal with this like when you were young, or is it something that you dealt with when you were older?
So, first of all, trigger warning. We're going to
Yeah.
talk about sexual abuse in childhood right now, because we're actually in the 16 days of activism for
Yeah.
gender-based
Yeah. Yes.
violence.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
although that by the time this video comes out, it's not. But anyway,
It will be. Yeah.
one in three
Mm.
women has experienced
Sexual. Yeah.
sexual violence. So someone listening to this will have experienced sexual violence. So for me, in my case, when I looked back at my history, because I had talked to my parents, and from my memory, I was actually 3 years old. Imagine, I was 3 years old when I was being sexually abused by a relative in the home, because we're in a multi-family household where you live with
Yeah.
other families and all
Yeah.
in one house, and some older cousins. And back then they'll just leave kids together. They don't
Yeah.
care
We'll all
what you
sleep in the
do.
same. Yeah.
Yes. And so that's what was happening to me. And it wasn't even like a single incident. So at that time, when I look back, I must have been scared that I would get into trouble. That's what happens to most victims of sexual violence, especially children, especially,
Yeah.
is that you feel like it's your fault in some way. And
Yeah.
also, if you're a child, probably the person has scared you. And also, what children do when they think they're in trouble, they think they've done something wrong, they don't talk. You don't tell, because you feel like you've done something wrong. You're not going to go and volunteer yourself. Because
Yeah.
also
Yeah.
the relationship we have with the caregivers as well, maybe there's no room for mistakes, so mistakes are not allowed. So anyway, for me, I didn't talk about it and I didn't tell. And so I just went on with my life and I totally forgot about it. So my mind blocked it out, which
Yeah.
is what can happen.
Was
Is
it
that,
only at 3 years, or it went on for
as
more
far
years?
as I remember, maybe 3 to 5.
That was
When I remember,
so
because
young. And
the
what's
reason I
interesting is
knew,
people think these ages, like whatever happened, someone like you forgot
no,
about it, but it's significant.
it is. There's a book called The Body Keeps the Score,
Yes, yes, I've heard about it. I
but I
haven't
haven't
read it.
read it.
Me
I
too.
saw it. But I can imagine the point
Yeah,
that the
yeah.
body keeps the score. So you will forget, but with you, your
It will
conscious
be in
mind
you.
will
Yeah.
forget, but your subconscious mind might not.
Yes, yes,
So there'll be
yes.
things that you are the way you are because of that. So let's say, for example, for me, one of my things was suffocation, because I could remember, I guess subconsciously, I didn't want a feeling of I can't breathe, or feeling that I can't breathe. Like I didn't want anything to block me, like I feel I can't breathe. And that was one of my things. It was from that, when I was 3 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. So anyway, my conscious mind blocked it out because the memories are too painful for you to face it. It's
Yeah.
too painful. So it's like, you know what, just switch it off. So you move in your life like that, but then at the same time you're super hyper. So for me, I was not hyper arousable, which is
Yeah.
easily anything small
scared.
I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah,
now easily get scared. And when I was little, I remember when I was like 9, 10 years old, I remember a maid telling me, you girl, but in Unyankole, she was saying that I have a chicken heart because I'm
yeah.
so
They're always
just
like,
scared.
yeah. Oh,
I would
wow.
just easily. So even in those
Yeah.
years, 9, 10, I didn't have conscious memory of the things, of what happened, but my body, I knew. So that's one of the things that were making me like that. So I only remembered again when I was 16.
That's
When
when
I,
you remembered what happened to you.
yes, when I was
Oh my
16.
God.
I don't know what made me remember, but I remembered. And the first person I told was actually my husband now, because he was my boyfriend. Um, it's the first person that I felt safe enough to tell, and so I told him. And then when I was 17, because when I was in S5, I told another friend in high school. I was in Namgunga, I remember on the balcony in S5. I told another friend, and when I told her, she told me, even her, she told me, even me.
What?
Yeah. So actually, then after that, I told another friend. So for me, I found that every time I would tell someone, that was my way of dealing with it. It would help. It would really help. But also, every time I ever told somebody else who was always a girl, they also had experienced it.
Yeah, I keep saying on
They
this
also had
podcast there is
experienced
huge power in storytelling. Like you
Yeah.
tell your story and someone comes out to you and tells you, "Thank you so much for saying it because I've never had the guts to come out and say what you just said, but it
Yes.
also happened to me."
Yes.
Wow.
Even here in the UK, there's someone I met as an adult, but she also had grown up in Uganda and moved here when she was younger. Even her, same thing had happened to her as well. So, anyway, for me, what happened was that how I dealt with it was just every time I would tell someone about it, it would help me, and I would feel like, yeah, I think I'm fine now. I think I'm okay now. But the thing is, I used to have intrusive memories because also memories start to come back. But intrusive memories means that the memories are there, but you don't want them. Or intrusive thoughts, something is in your mind, but you don't want it.
But you don't
So
want it, yeah.
you keep trying to distract yourself. You keep trying to block yourself out. Distract yourself, block it away, take it out. You don't want it. But the thing is that the thing with intrusive thoughts, the more you try and resist them, the stronger they become. The more you try and you don't want to think about it, the more it just stays there.
Until you deal with it.
You have to
Yeah.
deal with it. Yes. So for me, the intrusive thoughts had become so much more. They were starting to affect my relationship. Like I didn't want anything, start avoiding anything to remind you about it, or even you start blocking yourself consciously. Just so for me, another thing was social media. I used to be on my phone all the time, scrolling. Or busyness. I was making myself. I don't know if I made myself busy, but I was just a busy person. That my whole life, from when I left high school to when I had my second child, that's from like 2009. So no, 2010 to 2020. Yes, that was it. 2020 for 10 years, I was busy. Either I was in medical school. If I wasn't in medical school, and in medical school we never had breaks. So even that long holiday, we had
So
recess
it was
time.
your coping mechanism, yeah?
Yeah, busyness. Oh, it's not that I wasn't even coping. I was too busy. Like I could easily distract myself from it. So from med school, I got a job immediately. From internship, immediately internship ended. I never had any gap of I have no job. No, I made sure I got myself a job before even internship ended. I was working at SAS clinic. Then I changed from there. I got another job. Then as soon as I finished this job, I applied for a master's. So before the master started, I got married. I had like 2 weeks break. Then I started my master. I was so busy. My life was like I was constantly studying for some exam, doing some exam. I was
Yeah,
so
your
busy.
brain was like too busy to think
Exactly.
about all this. Oh,
Exactly.
wow.
Until
Yeah.
2020. Until 2020 November, that's when I had my baby. My second. And that maternity leave was the first maternity leave that I
Where
didn't
you
have
had
any
nothing to do.
exams. My first maternity leave, I was doing a master's,
Oh
and
my
I was,
God.
yeah, at the same time, I had a
Wow.
dissertation and also have a baby. So
You were really busy.
I was so busy. The
So
maternity leave,
2020, you were
yeah,
in maternity leave, and
actually, it
then
was
there is COVID,
2021.
so the world has shut down.
Yes, exactly. So 2021, actually, when by
20,
the time I had my baby, when over like a third lockdown now, because every time they would lock down, open lockdown.
yeah.
So we're in another lockdown, so we didn't have mom and baby groups, so I couldn't go anywhere to take her, or there were no much distractions, so I would just be there. And then another thing I did is that I deleted all my social media apps at the same time, just before I had the baby, because I watched the documentary, The Social Dilemma. Have you watched it?
Yes, it was so hilarious. Yeah.
So I watched that when I was pregnant, like a few maybe days before giving birth. So now I said, I'm very serious. This time I'm not going to go back because I had never tried to delete my Facebook. So anyway, I delete Facebook, Instagram, all of it. I delete them all. And so meaning I have no even social media distraction. I can't even scroll endlessly because I don't have it. And I was determined not to. So it was just me and my thoughts, me and myself. And so that's how there was now time, there was room for me to address all this unprocessed trauma came up. And that's how I went, I asked for help, and I started the
How was
therapy.
it? Was it too overwhelming for you?
The process?
The fact that you had shut it down for all this long and now it had come up at this time, was it too overwhelming for you?
It was, because also I didn't have anything else going on. That was all. So now intrusive thoughts become more, and that's all you're thinking about every time. You're trying not to think about it almost. I don't think I had nightmares, but some people can even have nightmares where even
Yeah.
sleeping, what. But it was difficult to sleep even when the baby is sleeping. That's a big red flag is not
Yeah.
sleeping when a baby is sleeping, and
Yeah.
yet you are postpartum. So anyway, yeah, that's what happened. And so I had the talking therapy, which really, really helped. And so I dealt with it as an adult. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
a long answer to your question.
No, that I think that was a very good answer, because if someone else is going through this, I think it's easy for you to pick out. Someone might be in that busyness season where they're like trying to avoid it, and maybe you can speak to. You mentioned something that was quite interesting. Like, you didn't tell your parents.
I told them now later, after I had
Yeah.
therapy. As I was
Yeah.
having therapy, it was one of my things that my therapist helped me um, plan how I'm going to talk about it. And
Yeah.
yeah, I
In your
told them.
professional opinion, how can a parent be able to pick out on some of these things based on the fact that, like, now that you look back in hindsight, I'm sure you can be like, I did do some of these things. I heard that many people who go through these experiences, they are crying out for help in somewhere or another, but it's
Yeah.
very hard for other people to pick up on it. In your professional experience, how can a parent who is probably having a child who has gone through something like this and they are not aware of it and the child is not communicating, how can they kind of pick out some of those behavior, and how can someone who then finds out, like, earlier enough and starts to have all these thoughts, how can they deal with it before waiting for such a long time?
Yeah. No, I think it's really important what you have said, and it's true that you can't be the same. You can't be sexually abused as a child and you're the same. You're different. So when I look back in my history, I feel like I was depressed in P1. I was depressed in
I
P1. Can you
know.
imagine? I was
We didn't even
in
know what depression was.
Yeah, I didn't know what depression was, but I was depressed from when I look at how I was. I was so sad. I was always down, and I was having nightmares. I remember I hated sleeping because when I would sleep, I would have nightmares, and the nightmares were kind of the same thing that would happen over and over again, like we're like in such a big slide, and I don't know. So it wasn't exactly the maybe sexual abuse dreams, but it was just nightmares. So I was having nightmares, and
Yeah.
I hated sleeping because every time I would sleep, I would continue the nightmare. Imagine. And so I was really, really sad, and my depression lifted by itself. Well, I don't know when it started, but I remember it ended in P1 because I remember the day my parents came and said, let's go out, and we went to, there was a place called Joy's Joint in Wandegea for pork.
Yes,
Yeah.
I remember it for
It
some
was
reason.
on Kingsey Road.
Yeah.
That was a road to my hostel. So anyway, we went there for pork, and I remember that from that moment onward, the next day I felt like I was okay. So even depression that's untreated, it can burn out. It ends by itself even if you're not treated. So although ideally you want to try and seek help, but you can have
Yeah.
depression and then it just ends. All diseases can, even like a manic episode, it can end. It can come by itself and it ends even without treatment. So, and I asked my mom later on that, was there a time when I looked like I was so sad? What? And she said yes. She could see that there was something wrong with me, but she didn't have enough awareness, I think. Didn't have the information. She didn't know what's going on or what. She just, so this girl. So I think for parents, you have to, I think number one, is very difficult, but you have to be there. You have to be there with your kids. You have to give them time and to know them. Because how would you know that something is wrong if you don't know the baseline? If you don't know what's this
Yeah.
person's normal?
Yeah, true.
So now
Like you have to be there to know when there's change in your child, their sleeping habits and
yeah,
how they're acting. Yeah.
yeah, as best as you can. I know life is really busy and we have so much going on and we're trying to work so hard for these kids. But at the end of it, you have to be there with the kids as much as you can. And that's when and then also talk to them about this kind of things, especially if you're in anywhere, but because there's sexual abuse in children, even here in the UK. They say the statistic of the UK is every 1 in 10 kids are being sexually abused. So that is 3 in every classroom, because the average number of kids is 30 of kids is being sexually abused. So you have to, for me, what I started doing from the reading I've done is to, number one, teaching them their parts, their private parts, their anatomical names, and not calling them funny things like susu and I don't know what other things they say. Those kind of things. And then teaching them about consent. So, for example, my kids, I don't like tawaza them because they refused. Because if they have refused, it's fine. I'm like, just clean yourself, clean yourself. I'm not going to force that I must clean. Those are private parts, and so no one should touch you without your consent. In fact, who are you consenting? Just no one. So even me, your mom, so even your dad, you are not allowed to touch unless you ask for permission. Like, I want to help you clean, but somehow they don't want. I think it's natural, like your body, you don't want someone to touch you there. So I never force it. And then also they know the name of their private parts, and they know that no one touching and none of that. And also having a good relationship with your kids, trying to be their safe space, so that they can tell you anything. Because you can't be with your kids 24/7, but there may be a time where something happens. At least they should feel like they can tell you if anything makes them uncomfortable. Yeah. And kids are very intuitive, I think. Yeah. They have strong instincts. They will not like someone. Don't force them to hug that person. Like when you go to church, there's some guy who, even me, he feels a bit creepy to me. And I really no, but I noticed my kids don't like him. So, sometimes you don't want to be awkward that, you're feeling it's awkward that the kids are refused to say hi to the person, but don't force them. Well, they can say hi, but like, let's say hugs or sit on whose lap. Yeah, so obviously I'll be more aware of it because of my own history, but I have to try and also see that it's not my trauma that's doing this, because sometimes it's where it's excessive. You might feel that it's excessive due to your trauma, and instead you cause harm as well.
You impose it on the kids.
Excessively, or start making them to look for danger. That might be your own trauma talking,
which can cause the anxiety in them and cause fear.
And also, and then also affect their future sex lives. If you start telling them, sex is bad, for example, where if you go beyond.
I know some of the stories our parents used to give us.
Yes. Exactly.
And for the little girl who is dealing with this, how can they be able to communicate what they are feeling, even with the fear that they have in their hearts, or that thought of, will they believe me? How do you think you could have communicated this at a young age?
I think it's not on the little girl. It's not on me at all in any way. It's on the environment around that's not supportive. It's the people around. So I would want to encourage anyone, if you feel like also you've never told anyone about it, to remember that it's not your fault. Because people may be like, why didn't I? Because I remember in therapy asking that question, that why didn't I tell? Why didn't I tell? I wonder, why didn't I tell? And my therapist helped me to realize that actually, what do kids do if they've done something wrong? What do they do? If a kid does something wrong and they know it's wrong, they don't tell. They don't tell. So it's because I had been made to feel like I've done something wrong. So also to remind people that it's not your fault in any way. There's nothing that you did wrong. It's the other person who has violated you. So it's not your fault, really. Yeah. So for me, it would be that, the people around me would be the ones to make it more conducive.
And did you and your friends who you shared with and found out you had a similar experience, did you ever help each other, or how can, for instance, a friend help another person when they share something like that with them?
I think just listen, because even just by listening is
You're
good enough.
helping.
Because
Yeah.
listening to someone and believing them, and yeah, just reminding them that it's not their fault, because they probably feel like it's their fault. There's a lot of feelings of shame,
Yeah.
of guilt, which is not your fault. Yet you
Yeah.
feel guilty, but it's because in the mind of a child, that's how you've worked it out. So the mind has worked it out that it's my fault, and so I am guilty, and so maybe I'm ashamed. I don't tell anyone. But even now, as an adult, there's that part of your mind that still is called your inner child. The part of your mind that still thinks like that. So trying to reconcile that too, and reminding yourself that you're an adult now, you're safe now. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much, Cissy. I didn't see this conversation going in this direction at all when we started out. I think it's very good information that you've given us, and thank you so much for being vulnerable. Is there anything that you might want to say? This is a new year, 2024. Let's just go into the future right now. What advice would you give to people with regards to your experience starting out the new year with all this hype of I want to make changes, I want to do this, I'm a woman, I'm conquering the world, even if normally by the time it's July, you're like, forget all those things.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to women who are starting out the year and they have made a decision and say, this is a new year, I'm trying to be a better person, a better mom, a better wife? How can you speak to them before we conclude?
Okay. I'll speak to them and to myself, because I also made some plans last year.
Me too.
By September, I had given up.
Man.
I guess the advice to me and to others is that we can start as many times as we need to. We don't have to start afresh only in Jan. Let's start in Jan with renewed energy, vigor. I also have my big plans in Jan. But if by Feb we have stopped, we start again. You can start afresh again. Or in March or in April, you can start and stop as many times as you need to. Let's not put too much
The new year
pressure.
can be any month.
Exactly.
Yes,
New year,
thank
new me
you.
can be any month. Yeah.
I think what you've said is actually very significant, because when you set a goal and say, January I'm going to do this, and by March you have not done what you plan to do, it's very easy for you to give up and be like, you know what, I'm a failure. But about it in a way that the year is still there, so you
It's
can.
still
It's
there.
never too late. It's never too
It's
late to
not.
start.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Me,
that's very good.
I had my new year, new me moment in July, August. I remember that's when I started my new life of working out. I started working out. I work out 3 times a week. I started clean eating in July. And it
Yeah,
was not one of my resolutions, by the way. It wasn't there at the beginning. It just came up all of a sudden. And I've been consistent
yeah,
for now.
that's good.
So really, you
That's
can
good.
start your new life at any one point. Let's not put
Even
too
in
much
December.
pressure on
Even in December. Yes. Thank you
Yes.
so much, Cissy. It was really wonderful talking to you. And
Thank
we
you.
look forward to you starting more mental health
That's it. I'm my new
content.
year, new me stuff.
Yeah. Now we're going to pray for that new year, new you to really come, because
That's
we
my
need
new year's
it.
resolution.
Yeah, you see, your New Year's resolution is our dream, like our goal of planning. Like whatever your content is going to be is what we need to be able to become our New Year, new me. Okay, thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you too.
Well, that was the perfect episode for the beginning of this new year, wasn't it? Thank you so much for joining me on this insightful journey with Dr. Cissy Atwine. I hope that her story has left you inspired and motivated. If you resonated with today's episode, please share it with your friends and family. Remember, every story matters, and by sharing, you are part of a community empowering one another. So as we wrap up today, I want to express my gratitude to Dr. Cissy for her openness and wisdom. If you haven't already connected with her, please follow her on social media for more valuable insights. I promise you, you will not regret it. Stay tuned for more empowering stories on SheCentre, the female podcast. I'll be back next week, same time, same place, with a new episode, new guests, and new inspiration to kick off your journey. Remember, your story is significant and your journey is worth celebrating. Until next time, take care and keep shining. Please help me spread the word by sharing our episodes with your friends, family, and followers. Let's amplify the voices of women, break barriers, challenge stereotypes, and create a network of support and empowerment. Together, we can bring about positive change and make this world a better place for all. This is SheCentre, the female podcast, where women's stories matter. I love you all. God bless.